I'm just going to change tack completely to a serious story, and I know one that Sarah Elliott's got a strong view on, and it's some breaking news. MPs have today voted in the biggest change to abortion legislation since 1967. This is an amendment to the Health and Care Bill. It's made DIY home abortion available permanently, and has overturned the government's decision last month to end the scheme. Home abortions were initially temporarily permitted during the pandemic, one of those things that was suspended or allowed to happen during the pandemic. Sarah Elliott, I know you're involved in campaigns on this or thinking hard about this. What do you make of this vote?
Well, I mean, it's quite significant. And, let's really talk about what this means. I think this should be, in section 1 of the newspapers, if not on the front page, because this has to deal with millions of women or hundreds of thousands of women throughout the country who can then terminate their pregnancy or terminate a life in the first 24 weeks of pregnancy. And this is at home by themselves, unassisted, unmonitored. There are not doctors, there are not nurses to care for you. You are forced and go into labor. Since this passed during the pandemic, over 10,000 women have had to be rushed to the hospital for medical care. It's much easier to get the pills and then coerce women to take it. They're just not the medical checks. The people who are prescribing it on the other side of the Zoom conference call just, can't really assess you as they can in hospital or in a GP surgery. So yeah. I feel like this is a massive decision and that women are being taken advantage of.
And just to give you the numbers, and this is just in, the numbers for this were 215 votes against 188. So, as majorities in the House go, not gigantic. But look, I've got to ask you before we move on to another story. As an American living in the UK, and we think about what's happening in the States at the moment, in states like Texas, Oklahoma, Mississippi as well, and the likelihood of the Supreme Court looking again at the key law on this and the precedent that it set. We are two countries on different trajectories, massively.
Yes and no. I mean, we're two countries in the throes of the culture war. The difference is that in America, we've made this a voting issue, whereas MPs over here can vote their conscience and they're not whipped. So it's become a political issue in the United States and a voting one. And that's why I think but it's also, we talk about it more in the U.S. And I think if it was talked about more and actually what women go through when it goes through an abortion and actually the development of the fetus and actually what happens in a procedure like that, I think people's minds would change.
Do you see any evidence that the mood is changing in the UK at all on this?
Slightly. I mean, it's not talked about enough, but the thing that does change it is technology. So the technology, when you know you're pregnant earlier, you see a heartbeat earlier, and you can find out the sex of the baby much earlier. So through blood work now at 10 weeks. So I think the more technology advances and children can live outside of the womb at a much earlier stage, I think at even 20 weeks, which is half of a pregnancy. I just think that lives change that way and hearts change that way.
Okay. Sarah, well, I'm sure that's a story that's going to be reflected on through the course of the evening here on GB News, but for now,